move on to a news item that has been a bugbear, not just a bugbear, but a conversation point for myself and our production team for a couple of days. The Department of Home Affairs has been really gracious in trying to accommodate a conversation, but couldn't make it this evening. But at the end of the day, the conversation I'm about to have is more critical than that which they had. But just to give you the background, South Africa has now enabled a remote working incentive as roughly the same as 50 other countries, including Australia, Brazil, Cayman Islands, Dubai, Germany, Portugal, Namibia, and Mauritius, including many others. And the idea here is that the average person can meet, if they meet the following criteria, the applicant will be conducting work for a foreign employer on a remote basis, that such a remote worker earns no less than R1 million per annum. So the big thing is that they must not compete with local workers. Where the visa is issued for a period not exceeding 6 months within a 12-month period, the foreigner will not be required to register for South African Revenue Services. We had this conversation 2 days ago with a tax specialist saying, is it fair that remote workers don't necessarily have to register for tax? Well, in the South African case, where the visa is issued for a period longer than 6 months, within a 12-month period, the foreigner must register with SARS. Joining us now to help us understand this in a greater perspective, Keri Culver, Senior Immigration Consultant at Xpatweb, joins me now. Thank you so much for your patience, Keri. Thanks and welcome to KayaBiz. How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm so well. Thank you so much for having me. It's so lovely to speak with you and also listen to, your previous guest, the minister, really showing support for the remote work visa.
Isn't that great?
We really are excited for what it's going to bring.
Absolutely. Political will is everything in this particular light. South Africa struggles with deep sort of xenophobic divides, and yet we were able very quickly to get a policy turnaround post the lockdown that gives us, I think, and you'll tell me, to what extent that might this help us economically?
So I think, look, the purpose of the remote work visa is really to stimulate the economy. It's also really aimed at a more affluent segment of the market. The initial regulations were gazetted on the 28th of March. Those were subsequently withdrawn on the 9th of April. And our newly appointed minister, Dr. Leon Schreiber, then signed the final amended regulations on the 9th of October, rather.
Got you.
As you mentioned initially, there are two qualifying criteria for the remote work visa. Mm-hmm. The first one is that applicants must be employed by a foreign employer, which means they are not coming into South Africa to take South African jobs. And then secondly, and a slight amendment to the income threshold, is that these applicants must earn in excess of 650,000 Rand. So that's about the 45,000 Rand a month. So again, really targeting the more affluent segment of the market to bring people in that are going to come to South Africa and spend their hard-earned money from abroad in South Africa, in small communities, in coastal communities, inland communities, really stimulating the economic growth of each region where we see sort of more affluent communities moving into.
Keri, just help me understand, when you say an amendment, is that the amendment from R1 million to 650? And do you know what drove that?
That is correct. So
okay.
Yes.
What drove that amendment?
I think a lot of it was consideration with SARS and consultation from SARS. There have also been tax compliance amendments. So if we look at the tax compliance from the amended regulations, there are essentially two criteria. The first is that if the applicant is from a country that has a DTA, which is a double taxation agreement with South Africa under Section 108(2) of the Income Tax Act, they will only need to register for tax if they spend more than 183 days in South Africa per 12-month period. So again, then we look at more of the tax side of things with a presence test. The second criteria on tax compliance is that where there is no DTA from the applicant's home country, they will automatically need to register for tax regardless of the duration that they'll be, spending in South Africa, and regardless of the duration that the visa will be issued for. So I think these amendments are really a step in the right direction. So although the financial requirement has been brought down, I think that we have seen headway with the tax requirements, and we can really see that consultation with SARS pulling through in the amended regulations.
Keri, can I be a little bit forward in your industry? I'm hoping I'm asking something that is not breaching any kind of client privilege. As a senior immigration consultant at Xpatweb, when you look across just your portfolio of clients, can you give us a sense of the industries they are either qualified for or interested in entering in South Africa?
Absolutely. If we look at our sort of client portfolio, we represent some of the biggest multinational companies on the planet that really range a broad sort of space of activity.
Yes.
But if we look at the financial services, mining, logistics, I think those are really the companies that we're seeing bringing a lot of expats in on work visas. Again, sort of circling back to the remote work visa and how that ties into a standard, if we look at a critical skills work visa, is that these applicants can now bring their spouses into the country. Their spouses are able to continue with their career that they started abroad, spend money in South Africa while accompanying their spouses who have work visas for South African companies.
Okay. And so this is not unlike major immigration hubs around the world. I was a resident employee in New York for a while. I was a resident employee in London for a while. So I can understand if you're highly skilled and you're able to say, okay, I'm able to bring this to your country and your company is able to back you, which is very similar to what the remote work visa is able to do. Lucky for them, I didn't come with a partner or children, but I certainly came with a lot of spending. This is something that any country would be welcoming to. Is the anticipation that some or many of our remote work visa clients would likely settle in the country? Because I think when I was in all those countries, it was never, I had the latitude to get a green card, but I just never intended.
So the option, the premise of the remote work visa is really a short term.
Okay.
It will not be issued for a period longer than 3 years. And the applicants at this stage, based on the current regulations, will be unable to change conditions to a long-term visa within South Africa. So if they do want to stay, they're more than welcome to, but they need to return back to their home country and apply for a long-term visa through the various options that South Africa offers. So there definitely are ways and means, but it won't be people coming into the country on a supposed short-term basis and then staying and taking a South African job. I think that they've written the regulation beautifully to really protect the South African job force and job market, but also it really allows for so much depth in terms of what they can do. Rent homes,
integration into the
really
economy.
Take part in integration, absolutely 100%. Integration. So it really lends itself to integration, but there is no segue for long-term residents based on the remote work visa as it stands.
By the way, we don't have a problem with okay, but that's interesting. I didn't know that there was a 3-year limit. The other thing I wanted to ask in terms of successes for Leon Schreiber, he spoke about a very significant backlog. That was about IDs, but he also spoke about a backlog with respect to highly skilled work visas. Might some of these be solved by the remote working visa, or are those kind of being expedited at the moment in order to get them through? Do you know anything about that?
Look, the department are really prioritizing work visa applications. In terms of economic growth, really the backbone of bringing skilled work into the country, or skilled labor into the country rather. In terms of the backlog, the minister has been very, very sort of outspoken about clearing the backlog by Christmas. So we're really eager to see whether that will come to fruition, but we know that he has a dedicated team behind him. Whether the remote or the introduction of the remote work visa will sort of lighten the load on that backlog, unlikely, purely because these are applications that are going to be submitted abroad. They are not going to be applications that sort of join the back of the queue for the South African backlog.
Okay. Keri Culver, Senior Immigration Consultant at Xpatweb. Thank you so much. Incredible insight that you've given us this evening. I'm excited. And at the same time, as a Cape Townian, irritated, because now I know Leon Schreiber is backed up all of my restaurant reservations for Christmas. All of the locals, all the new locals will be booking. But otherwise, we're very happy that they'll be spending in our tourism city. So thank you so much.
Always, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Look forward to speaking with you soon.